Welcome to the American Contractor Show, the show that's all about American contractors living the American dream. I'm your host, John Dye. Each episode will introduce you to contractors just like you who have beaten the odds and leveled up their game to become the dominant force in their markets. Together, we'll explore the tools and tactics that unlock the secrets to their success. Join me as we begin the journey that leads to the realization of your American dream. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Tuesday edition of the American Contractor Show. I am your host, John Dye, and thank you so much for joining us and being a part of today's episode. I'm really excited today because we're going to discuss some things that typically aren't very openly discussed and things that I think are really important when you're trying to build and scale a company. We're talking about team building today, and I brought on one of my favorite people in the industry that I believe has been influential in helping build his team and the people around him and works within a team, which is Nathan Tebedo from Contractor Coach Pro, and he's going to be with us here in just a minute. If you guys don't know who Nathan is, if you don't know who Contractor Coach Pro is, Jim Johnson, his amazing team that he's built up, Nathan is kind of he's the right-hand guy for Contractor Coach Pro, and he does a lot of different stuff, and he's one of the main coaches there that goes around and teaches contractors and helps them out with some stuff. And we're going to talk about a lot of different things that have to do with how you build your team, how you structure it. And if you're an employee, this is a great episode for you to listen to. It's also a great episode for business owners, contractors that are part of this culture, that are building teams within them. This is going to be a great episode for you guys as well. I hope you share it with your teams and hopefully help to build better, more efficient teams that are better for your businesses and help you grow. Hey, one of the best things that you guys can do as contractors, though, is when you partner with a great manufacturer. And one of my favorite partners out there right now is Atlas Roofing. If you guys haven't checked them out, you need to go find out what they're doing with their Live Roof Play system that they have right now. It's a great partnership for roofers to be a part of, or contractors that do roofing. If you're a part of that, go check them out. Go to atlasroofing.com/asphaltlife. and learn all about their unique programs that they got. I know they have a really cool conference coming up for some of their contractors, and it's really not that hard to be a part of that. So go check it out. Go to atlasroofing.com/asphaltlife to learn more. So without further ado, though, I want to bring Nathan in, and we want to talk about this stuff because there's a lot of really good information that he has and a lot of knowledge and great, in my opinion, one of the most knowledgeable people in our industry when it comes to this topic of building teams and coaching and learning stuff. So Nathan, thank you so much for being a part of this and joining us today.
Wow. Thanks, John. That's quite an endorsement. Appreciate that.
Bro, I love hanging out with you. I love working with you. I've watched you and Jim and the team that you guys have and what you guys are doing. I got to sit in on your event last year in San Antonio. And dude, that was one of the coolest events I've ever seen. You know, you guys brought in contractors. You guys had a room where they were all these round tables laid out. I'm trying to explain this to people in the way I saw it because I think it was super cool. And in those round tables, you had individual businesses that were coming from all over the country. They sat there with their key leaders, and they literally dismantled their business and rebuilt it in like 4 days. Yeah. And you guys broke it down by system, and then there was some fun stuff, some, pub crawls and different stuff was going on at night. And it was a really cool experience to watch. And I was just sitting in the back with Ricky, and we were just hanging out, and it was man, I thought, dude, this is one of the coolest things I've ever seen in our industry. And I don't know why more people aren't jumping all over this because I know that those businesses definitely had a huge amount of growth from that.
That was our strategy conference. Yeah, that was cool. That was a really cool event. And you're right. I mean, I've been in the industry for 21 years, and I've never seen anything like that. And I'm actually in the middle of planning strategy 21 that'll be at the end of this year. We're putting that together. So yeah, that was a cool event.
And that's going to be virtual this year, right?
Yes, it is going to be virtual. We're gonna spread that out a little bit. We're gonna basically try to facilitate helping your team get prepared for 2021. And so it's not really geared around education. There's a lot of really great events out there that are really about educating and teaching you things. This one's kind of more about taking all this education and then taking your team and sitting down and saying, okay, what are we going to do next year? What are we trying to accomplish? How are we going to do it? Let's get it planned. And so by the end of that particular conference, the companies that attended had their year pretty much planned out, but their first quarter planned out in detail. And then they knew, it was good.
Yeah, it was so tactical. I liked it. Like, it just seemed like it was so tactical and implementation minded. Like, you guys were all just chilling, and everyone in there was so focused on what worked in their business, what needed help, and building all these little processes between, where before they just maybe didn't exist altogether. I mean, they didn't have some people just wing it in our industry. They're like, oh, when this happens, we just kind of just deal with it when it happens and we'll figure it out. But having a process in place is truly how you can scale. And that's what I've noticed. Those companies that were there were scaling, they were growing, they were building huge organizations.
It was cool to watch their teams work together.
Definitely.
And then having, like, when one company they were struggling over marketing or HR compliance, and then another company had a really good system built for that. And then during the group time and the group session, they were able to help each other out, say, oh, well, we had that problem a few years ago, and then this is kind of how we solved it, and then basically be able to kind of work back and forth within their own companies and get advice from companies that might have been a few years down the road or a little bit bigger than they were and had already dealt with those challenges. And so it was fun to watch that.
Yeah, it definitely was. I enjoyed it a lot, and I liked watching how you guys worked, how you and Jim worked together in, running this event, and it kind of gave me a little bit of insight. And then since then, we've gotten to spend more time together, and I've learned a lot about you. And I think you, my friend, are like one of the most best examples in our industry of someone that, in my mind, just works so well within your system. And that's hard to find in our industry. People typically, for lack of better, let's just expose this like as for what it is. But typically our businesses are run by companies that have branched off from other companies and started their own thing. And, because of some sort of rift or result, and it's caused this like tension between business owners, contractors, and the people that work for them. And I want to kind of expose some of this today and put some misconceptions to rest, and hopefully give not just contractors some great advice on how they should structure their business to help deal with these situations, but also how employees and team members can become better team members for their businesses.
Yeah. So I think it all kind of starts with how you planned out your business to begin with. I would say that a very, very common story I hear is I branched off from another company, which is pretty common, or maybe I could have been a subcontractor of some kind and then decided to build my business. So what happens is when our companies are small, everybody knows this, you have a few people, and those few people wear a lot of hats, right? So I've got an admin person who answers the phones and does scheduling, but then that person also handles all of our invoicing and all of our accounting. And then they even deal a little bit in production. And then I've got a salesperson, and that salesperson has to do everything from start to finish, including building their own orders. Then I've got a production person, and that production person does a little bit of sales themselves. They also, schedule all the jobs and deal with the subcontractors. And then they also go out and do all the quality control. That's normal. That's really, really normal. The thing is that when we go to scale the company or add people to the company, are we looking for more people who can do everything? And that's a really common thing. I mean, I would say the average number of stages that most of the people that I deal with expect their salespeople to handle is anywhere between 7 and 9 stages. They expect their salesperson to do marketing, run their appointments, do all the documentation, do presentations and closings. And then they also expect them then to be able to collate and put all their paperwork into the necessary order it needs to be in, get all their contracts together, in some cases, build estimates, maybe deal with supplements, work with insurance companies, all the way through to submitting and sometimes building their own orders. And so an owner goes out and looks for somebody like that to bring into their company, because if they find somebody like that, then the owner feels like they don't have to do all those things themselves, right? But they're basically, if you find somebody who can do that, you're finding somebody who's fully capable of doing your job, right?
Right.
And so as soon as they learn these things, if there's somebody who's predisposed to be an entrepreneur, they have the talents and the abilities, and then you just gave them the education. So,
right.
Yeah, so that structure and that methodology is kind of what gives people inside of these companies the ability to go start their own company. Then it's just maybe a matter of time before there's some sort of disgruntled situation or a disagreement, and maybe 2 or 3 of them. And now all of a sudden this person who you were relying on to do all the things that you knew how to do knows how to do all of them, and now they're not happy with you, and off they go.
Well, let's talk about this from a tactical perspective for a second, though. So if you have a person that you basically just duplicated yourself into another person, there's really no clear advantage to that, because that person can still only do the amount of work that they can handle.
Yeah. Now you've got 2 of you that are limited at whatever that number, that capacity level is. And so what's funny is that if you're an owner and you're looking to scale your business, now you've got 2 of you funneling all this stuff, and you're still not able to work on your business, right? Because if you step back 100% and this new person is just as good as you are, your revenue remained the same, but you're giving away a piece of the pie so that you can try and work on your business, but you didn't actually grow.
What most contractors do then is they start to just add more until they get to where they got 10, 15, 20 of these guys, and they think, okay, now we're making money, but in all reality, they're still super limited.
Yes. Yeah. It's kind of like this, building that step-by-step process. Now people hound on this all the time, and I understand people get tired of hearing about process, but I will give you an example. So let's say you're a sales manager and you've got all these duties and responsibilities, and they range from recruiting and hiring and onboarding to training to field work to ongoing training and coaching with your people. But then you also have the responsibility of approving jobs before they go to production and building reports and numbers to bring to your staff meetings and all that, right? So these are all these things that fall inside of your realm. And you get to a point where, let's say that approving jobs every single week takes you, say, I don't know, takes you like an hour or 2 hours a week to do that, okay? And with the number of guys you have, that's a manageable amount of time. But those are steps in your process and your responsibilities. Well, let's say that you're really good and you scale your team up to the point where now approving jobs can take up to 5 hours a week because you've got so many guys turning jobs in, okay? I'm not going to go out and try to hire another sales manager. What I'm going to do is I'm going to find somebody who I can train to approve jobs. I'm going to find somebody I can train to approve jobs, and then maybe that person can also take some of the data coalescing for my sales reports and analytics. So now I didn't try to find another sales manager who can do everything I can do. I found somebody to take that time off my plate for these specific things. Does that make sense?
That makes total sense.
So now as a sales manager, I'm like, I'm really good at recruiting, hiring, onboarding, training, and coaching my guys. I found somebody to take this stuff that's taking time off my plate that I'm maybe not that great at. I mean, I'm not a big fan of spreadsheets, and I'm not really very good at it. So if I found somebody who could handle all that stuff for me, great. But I didn't have to find another person just like me. So owners should take that same perspective with their entire process, start to finish, rather than bringing somebody in who they train how to do all of it and then trying to find somebody else. We call those purple unicorns, right?
Right.
Because that's who the owner was. The owner was a guy who was capable of, the guy or gal that was capable of doing all of that stuff. And then finally they just said, why am I doing all of this stuff and splitting the profits with somebody else?
Right. And then they just duplicated themselves again.
Yeah.
And it just keeps going down the line. And this is kind of how this all evolved. And I'll be right, I'm right there with you. And this was something that I didn't understand as well either. And when we got acquired by Balance, it was definitely a very awakening experience. Like it was a shock moving into from a, entrepreneur world to now like the employee slash member. We have 5 members here that are owners of Balance. Okay. So there's 5 of us that are all working on the business at any given point. And then we've got like 40 employees that are working here day in and day out. But moving into that role and seeing how Balance has built a process that basically claims go through an assembly line through this business. And every person here has a task, not multiple tasks. They have a task to do every day, day in and day out. Depending on what it's all generalized. And so we look at the whole scope of it. And I look at my own life and my job. I've been able to be so much more efficient with my time and much less. I have like almost no stress working here compared to what my life was like before. And so I'm just, being straight up, like it's so liberating to come in and be a part of a team. And some people don't, they don't see that part of it. And to me, like my agenda before was work hard, work hard, work hard, because that's the only way to get through. But now it's more like work smart, work smart, work smart. Everything I do is so targeted and very influential because I know that that's what's going to work. And I've focused my energy on this one thing and I'm going to become really good at it versus trying to be the master of all these things and being overwhelmed and stressed out. That to the point to where if you are doing that, if you're an employee and you're running all these things, you're stressed out because you're an employee doing tons of things that you shouldn't have to do, instead of being part of a team that does all these different steps for you. And there's so much liberty in that. And I think that it's so underrated in our industry to look at it from that perspective. But I look at companies like Apple Roofing. I think Dustin's going to be on later this week. And I look at some of these other bigger companies. And Dustin said, I've heard him say this several times. I sat in his office and he said, Johnny goes, it was much, much more difficult for me when we were doing $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, $4 million than it is for us now doing 30, 40, 50, $60 million a year. Because we have all these processes in place. He's like, dude, life is great. I'm not stressed out. I got a whole team of people and we have things to, whenever something goes wrong, we already have a process for it. We already know what's going to happen. We already know what that's going to look like. And it doesn't matter if you have 10 people or you got 100 people in your company. Building these processes and giving people tasks, I think, is the secret to success in whatever business it is. It doesn't matter if you're trying to run a painting business, a roofing company, whatever the type of business is, whatever contracting it is. This is the secret sauce here to how to run a successful business.
Well, I think the other factor too is when you scale and people start to have the ability to focus on their strengths, right? Like, I would probably say the overwhelming majority of the owners that I deal with, they're not real great at accounting. It's not their strength. They don't really know how to run QuickBooks. They don't really want to know how to run their accounting system. But you know what? In the early days, they do it and they just figure it out because it's just them, right? Well, if you don't like doing it and you're not real great at it, get it off your plate. So even if you're working the same number of hours every single week, if you're doing something you love and you're good at, it doesn't feel like stress. It doesn't feel as stressful. Right. And it's the same thing. The thing too is, I know we're talking about owners a little bit here, but the principle applies to your employees as well. If the more you're able to allow your employees to focus on their own strengths and what they're good at, the more they enjoy their job. And the less likely they're going to be, they are to be grumbly or unhappy or stressed out. Is that as you scale and you're able to go to your employees and say, well, what do you love to do? Right? Like, I know right now you're at your max capacity, John. You're at your max capacity and you can't handle anymore. We need to help you out. We want to free up your time. Tell us, where do you feel most effective? What do you love doing? And John can say, well, honestly, I really like working with our suppliers and our crews. I like training and production. I like putting those things together and scheduling it. What do you not like doing? Man, dealing with those orders and constantly reviewing files is just killing me, right? So, okay, let's take that off your plate. Now, if John only got to do what he really loved and felt fulfilled doing, how likely is he to leave? Not very. Because he's happy. He's doing what he likes to do. And so that also contributes to the happiness and the health of your team, is when people get to focus on the things that they love. Now, it doesn't matter where you work, and whether you're an owner or an employee or whatever you may be, like there's always parts of your job that, I like less than others, and that's okay. But if you're able to reduce that number of things.
Nathan, let me ask you this though. What is the typical reason why this is so difficult for contractors specifically to embrace? Like, why do we feel like we've got to keep this give this guy like the whole kit and caboodle, do everything within these individuals instead of like building this out? Like, why is this so hard?
Well, there's a few reasons for that, I think. The first one is that's how they learned. That's how they learned. The last company they were at, that company taught them everything, if that's where they came from. That company taught them all the ins and the outs. And then the owner feels like that's how they became successful and became who they are. And so when it's time to build their own team, they're going to do the same thing to them that happened to them. Like that's what they know. And so they may not necessarily be thinking about, okay, how do I shift away from what I was taught, even though it might be really good, to focusing on just getting this person into the niche that I need them in. And oftentimes it's a difficulty of goals, especially the small business people. They dream of the day that they don't have to be in the office every single day. They dream of that day. And so they dream of the day that they can go on a vacation. They dream of the day that they could play hooky on an afternoon, and take their wife out or their husband out and go play golf or whatever it is. They dream of those days. And so in their minds, instead of thinking about the process of how to get to those days, oftentimes we get caught up in just getting some people in the door that we can dump these responsibilities off onto. And so the more responsibilities I can put onto a person, the less I have to do, and the closer I get to that day that I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, so they rush the process essentially.
Yeah, they kind of push it towards that angle, and then they start thinking that they need a general manager for their business, and they start thinking that they, and the more you give those things up. So first of all, the more you give those things up, the less money you make, and that's fair. That's fair. If you ever want somebody. The more you want somebody to take over in your business, the less you make financially. Initially, yes, because you're looking to make money on the scale, whereas these people are going to be making money as the boots on the ground. And so if you're hiring a production manager and a sales manager and you want a general manager, those are all pieces of the pie that you used to eat, and now somebody else has to eat them. So you got to pay attention to that, right? And then looking for people that have those talents. Nobody cares as much about your business as you do. I think Gary Vaynerchuk is a person I think who actually heard kind of nail this home on a large scale. Some of you have probably worked for people who are like, well, I want to bring somebody into this company who just treats this company like their own. Are they going to make as much money as you? No. Then you can't expect that of them, right? Nobody works as hard on your business as you do. And that's okay. So then rather than demanding of them that they act like you, right, without the same reward as you, why don't we demand of them exactly what we need of them, right? And what their talents and what their skills gear them towards. And then find other people to take those other hats. I want one person per hat if I can help it. And Apple Roofing can probably tell you the exact same thing. We have one person who handles accounts receivables. That's their only job, accounts receivables. I mean, can you imagine that? Well, their accounts receivables line is pretty big. That's a job for one person. And somebody else handles accounts payables and balance sheets, And
that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
And then let's ask, I want to ask you one more thing real quick. What advice would you give to an employee who is in this situation where they're kind of frustrated, they're thinking their minds are already going in that direction? hey, you know what? I'm already doing all this work anyways. Why am I giving up that much of the pie? Like you said, like, what advice do you give that guy?
Well, unless you run your own business, you truly don't know how much work it is. And it's a matter of ignorance, but I don't say that as an insult. Unless you've done it, you don't understand how many sleepless nights, the liability, the risk, the HR, the leadership that you need that you may not have just yet, or the skill set, or the drive, or the energy. Like, owning your own business, there is so much that goes into that
Mm-hmm.
when you've got a strong owner at a pretty good sized business, you see the benefits of what that person went through, but you don't really see what they actually went through to get there.
Yeah,
Right.
if anyone's ever met Troy Clymer, if anyone's ever met Troy Clymer here at Balance.
So they literally
That
they made that energy drink. What's it called? Tron?
The Tron juice, yes, Tron
Right,
juice, of
Tron
course.
juice. So people, I think people think that that's like a manufactured thing. No, they just hook an IV up to Troy every afternoon. He pumps that directly into those bottles. It's disgusting.
At 2 a.m. when you get those 2 to 3 a.m. emails that are like forever long, you're just like, how did you do this? How did this even happen? I respond with one word. Okay.
Yep, got it.
Yep, exactly.
The other advice I would give to employees, and I think I would give this advice to any employee across any spectrum, any field. You need to begin to think of yourself as your own little business. This is pure mindset. Okay, you are not a victim. Okay, and you don't have to do anything that you don't really want to do. But what we do is we weigh the benefit versus the discomfort when we're told to do certain things, right? Well, if you begin to think of yourself as your own little business, which you are, you pour into your own education. Hopefully you take care of your body and your mind or whatever. Your boss, or the owner, they're your customer. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, if you can get yourself to thinking about changing your mentality that you are your own little business, you can then begin to take responsibility for what positions you get yourself into. So if you think about when you're dealing with a subcontractor and maybe they're a subcontracted crew and you send them out to a job and they look at this job and they go, I'm not going to do that job. I don't want to do that job. Nope. That guy can turn that job down. Now, it doesn't happen a whole lot, right? Because hopefully you're sending the right crews to the right jobs, but I've seen it too. Somebody comes out and they look at it and they go, I'm not doing that. I'm not well equipped to do that. Well, you should begin to take that your own responsibility, especially when you're looking to accept a job from somebody. If somebody's looking for you to become an admin or a production manager, or they're looking for a right-hand guy, like literally read your employment contract. What's in there?
Right.
Okay. And then when you begin to take that responsibility, if you find that you and the company just don't seem to jive really well, maybe you and that culture don't work, or their goals or their end game or whatever that may be, you are your own little business and you can decide where you apply your efforts and how you do that. And it took me years to figure that out, by the way. I didn't come out of the womb knowing this. That was years worth of making mistakes and thinking, well, this is what I have to do, rather than thinking of myself as somebody who has autonomy to say, this is what I'm here to do. This is what I'd like to do. You agree with it? You don't? And then literally negotiating over what I'm supposed to do. And like, you have that.
Do you think a lot of that, though, a lot of the animosity or that feeling comes from miscommunication or lack of communication?
Oh, pretty much 100% of it. I don't think most business owners are bad people, and I don't think that they're liars, and I don't think that they hire people expecting to rip them off. But the employee-employer relationship, I think, over time has only become more and more strained, and I think a lot of it comes from people feeling like they don't have a choice in what they do. Mm-hmm. And so then they feel like, well, I'm just working for the man. No, you're the man. And you can decide where that goes. And I know this, for some people, this might be difficult to listen to. They're like, you don't know my life. You don't know how many bad bosses I've had and the things I've had to do. And you're right. I don't know all of those things. But I do know you have more power than you think you do. And so when you're inside of a company, you should be asking yourself questions while you're there. Some of those questions are you contributing or detracting from the company? And I don't care if you're a salesperson or if you're a marketing person or an admin or production or an accountant, whatever. Are you contributing or detracting? You know, if everybody's getting ramped up and excited about the direction of the company and the vision and everybody's clapping, are you not? Are you not clapping? That's an important fact. Are you the dissenting opinion all the time? It's okay to be a dissenting opinion once in a while, especially if you see a potential problem. But are you consistently the dissenting opinion on the vision or the direction of what we should be doing? Could be a sign that either your attitude needs an adjustment or you're maybe in the wrong place. One of the other things is, you know, do you feel like it's all about you? Do you view everything that happens inside that company through the lens of whether or not it benefits you or not? I think some of that is appropriate because you should pay attention to your own house and make sure you're doing okay. But if that's your default position all the time, another potential place for an attitude adjustment. That's a good rule of thumb for anybody. I don't care if you're an owner, a leader, a manager. If it's always all about you, people know it. Like they'll know that immediately. Some of the advice that I give leadership teams when they're kind of building out the culture for their business is I tell them, look at your entire company and each one of you managers, think about the people that you have below you, okay? Think about which one of those people are they're dynamite. That person is fantastic. And if I could clone that person, I could take over the world. So I tell managers to think about their people that way. Which one of your people do you have that if you could clone that person, you guys would be unstoppable? So then as an employee, are you the person they would pick to clone?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a different way of seeing it. Like, do they look at you and go, God, I could just use 4 more Johns and we would just be in really good shape. I think that's some of the advice I would give to people who are working in a particular place. And believe me, the grass is only greener on the other side if it's been watered severely. And sometimes it gets watered with blood, sweat, and tears.
No, man, and that's great advice. And I think that's where a lot of employers as well as employees need to, figure out what they're good at, figure out what works for them. And not everyone's going to turn out to be a good business owner. And just because, you're seeing things through that lens of, man, I'm doing all this already. Why shouldn't I just do it for myself? Why am I giving this away? When in reality, the reason why you're even thinking that way is because you're probably miserable at what you're doing right now anyways, which means you're doing way too much stuff that you hate doing. So you should probably consider having a conversation about where you really fit in within the organization and just be straight up and honest. Now, if that organization doesn't have that same objective or they're not looking to grow in that direction, maybe you're just in the wrong place.
It could totally
and that happens.
Yeah. I mean, you could be in a real mom pop type small business and they just kind of run things kind of loose because they feel that's just kind of their culture and who they are. And you're much more of,
and for some people that's great.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. But maybe
right.
You're more like, I really like the more corporate style structure. I like more aggressive movements and tactics. I really want to push and I want to push hard, but these folks don't seem to want to do that. If that's the case, there's nothing wrong with you or them. And maybe rather than starting your own business where you think I could do better than they could, maybe you just need to find a culture out there at a good company where that's their way of doing things.
And I never dreamt to be in that position to where I would love working within a big organization. I always thought I was, and people even looked at me like, man, why would you do this? Like when I made my decision to come over here, like I had literally had people in our industry look at me and say, John, and sit down face to face and say, John, why in the world would you make that decision? Like you can make so much money doing this or you can do that with it. And I'm like, because you know what, dude, I just fit. Like this is a perfect fit for me. Like I love it. Like I have nothing to say that's negative about it. I mean, it's different, but it's so much more freeing in so many ways. And I mean, it's changed a whole lot of things in my life that have made life way better for us and for my wife, for my family, for everything that we're doing. Like we're in a much better position because of that decision. And it just goes to say, like, that decision, while it may be underrated, while it may not be what a lot of the entrepreneurs around me think is a cool decision, I think for me personally, it's been a great decision.
I tell sales guys in particular, because they seem to be the ones typically who make that move, is somebody who's kind of typically a salesperson or sales minded. That's a real common. I tell those guys all the time, like, look, instead of thinking about going and opening up your own business so that you can get the other half of the pie on the $800,000 or $1 million you sold last year, why don't you go try and sell 2 first? Go sell 2 million, then go sell 2.5 million, then go sell 3 million. And then when you're making 300, 325, 350 grand a year, not having to be a business owner, now decide whether or not you want to take that on, right? It's like somebody sells $1 million and then decides, well, I want the other 50%, or I want the other, 20 or 30%. Like, no, try go selling 2 million first. Go make all your commissions on 2 million and then see if you're still unhappy, or find another place real quick. Cause that's a big decision. And there's a reason why the failure rate for people in our industry is it's over 80% inside of 3 years.
And that's not to scare people or make it a negative thing to go out and start your own business. I want to make that very clear. Like, if you want to go start your own business and you are an entrepreneur and this is really this is you, then go be you. Like, by all means, that's totally cool. And people that are like that, that's just the way it's going to be no matter what. But if you're only upset because you're having to do all this crap that makes you unhappy, then you're focused on the wrong thing. And you may want to rethink that decision at that point.
And there may be some solutions. There may be some solutions to that you're not aware of, and maybe just need to go have a conversation with somebody about it. But you're right. I mean, I love entrepreneurs. You love entrepreneurs. We're all here to support those guys and be there for those guys. And if they look, I mean, entrepreneurs know it too. It's like, they are what they are, what they are, what they are. And if you've got a guy and by the way, if you've got a guy working for you and that's how they are, eventually there's nothing you can do about it. That guy's got to fly. And that guy or gal is they just got to do their thing, and they're going to do it no matter what.
Right. And that's a scary part too for business owners, because they're always worried about that. That seems to be like one of the biggest concerns in their mind when they're thinking about their salespeople or their organization as a whole, their management team and stuff. When are they going to leave, or when is this going to happen to me? Because they've seen it over and over and over again, time and time again with other past situations. So yeah, absolutely.
If you're worried about that, for any of the owners that are worried about that, one of the things that you can do to help yourself is, what would have kept you from starting your own business? If you think about it, if you're like, you know what, like, these things made me unhappy, and that's kind of why I went to go do my own thing. Are those things happening in your company? If you can create an environment that you wouldn't have left, you're probably creating an environment that other people won't leave.
Wow, that's good. That's really good. Business owners, entrepreneurs, you guys that are out there right now, I hope you enjoy Nathan Tebedo and what he's doing, because this is what he does all day for contractors. Him and Jim and the whole team at Contractor Coach Pro. Get with these guys right away, because they have some amazing opportunities to help you scale your business, grow it. The Strategy 2021 is coming up. That's a huge deal. These events they're not for everyone, but the ones that really want to scale and learn and be a part of something, this is top-notch training right here. I appreciate you so much, Nathan, for what you're doing. What do contractors need to do to get a hold of you? Just if somebody wants to talk to you guys.
Well, we're pretty easy to find on Facebook, Contractor Coach Pro. We also have a Facebook group, Contractor Radio, a podcast, Contractor Radio, as well, that we've been putting information out on.
Phenomenal podcast.
It's been a lot of fun. Just got done doing with Matt Grassmeyer that we're going to be putting out.
Oh, nice. Love Matt. Great dude.
You can hit me up at Coach. My email is coach@contractorcoachpro.com. Pretty straightforward.
Cool.
If you want to hit me up over the phone, you can. Up 719-433-8105. I have no problem with that. Don't spam me. I'll get mad. Feel free to reach out through any of our Facebook, LinkedIn, any of those spots, or our website, contractorcoachpro.com.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for being a part of this, Nathan. I really appreciate it, sir.
Hey, thank you, John.
All right,
I
buddy.
really enjoyed it.
Absolutely. So thank you. So, folks, that's Nathan Tebedo with Contractor Coach Pro. I encourage you guys to reach out to these guys. They know what they're talking about. They know what to do when it comes to these situations because they've seen it before. They've been through it. They've watched other people go through it. They've helped businesses scale. I've worked with these guys personally, and I'm going to tell you, I 100% endorse everything that they're doing. And if you are looking for a coach, for someone to help you as you start to build these processes out in your businesses, these are the people you should be talking to. They have amazing strategies and they have amazing tools and tactics and coaching that they provide in order to help you do that. So I really appreciate you guys for watching today. Thank you so much to our sponsors, to RoofScope, Hail Trace, Atlas Roofing, Balance, Art of the Supplement, the Catalyst Group for endorsing this program and making this a part of their sponsorships. We really appreciate it because it makes it possible for us to produce these things and give you guys high quality content. We have some really amazing episodes coming up a week from today. You do not want to miss that episode. We're going to talk about truck wraps and we're going to show off something that we did internally here for fun that is really cool. And we've got some other stuff coming up that you guys do not want to miss. So thank you so much for watching today. We'll see you guys on Thursday. Have a great couple of days, and we'll see you soon. Thanks so much for watching today's show. Make sure to like and subscribe our pages so that you can stay up to date with every episode. And by the way, this show is all about you, the American contractor. Be sure to comment, let us know what you want to hear about and what subjects you want us to touch on. We'll be sure to include them in a future episode. Thanks again, and I hope you have a great day.